From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, this is Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. This first segment of the show brought to you by Meristem. In today's show, Mark wraps up his conversation with NCBA Environmental Stewardship Award Program Regional winner Jack Smith. I visit with Will Griffin of Valent, and Dustin talks with Robert Cossar of Croplan. Now here are your hosts, Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman.
Iowa Ag Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. And Dustin, as I look at the ag market screen to begin the day, the ag marketplace mixed trade a little bit in the grains, although we have more green on the screen than we started with yesterday. And in talking with Jim McCormick of agmarket.net coming up on today's show, I'm going to be interested to ask him about this week when we have seen the movement in the soybean complex to the upside. Has that been primarily driven by RVO numbers? Has that been any of the weather concerns that's happening in South America? What exactly has been providing that little bit of support for the soybean complex here this week? As again, today, we saw soybeans with slight gains to start the day, but that's kind of what I've been wondering about here as we look at the market screens.
Yeah, the markets did start off, like you said, the soybeans started off really good. We had 6 to 7 cent gains overnight. And now everything's kind of settled a little bit, but it is going to be interesting to see. I mean, everything's being traded on rumor right now, and export rumors, quite a bit of that because of the fact that we aren't, in the fields yet. And Brazil has got all the weight in their corner right now with the harvest going on. And so a lot of it's going to be speculation to how many acres we plant. That's the first big hurdle that really comes for getting the market figured out for the American growing season is how many acres are planted, and that doesn't come out till significantly later on, so it's going to be all speculation up till that point. And of course, those numbers can change, all it takes is one hailstorm to wipe out a cornfield and turn it into a soybean field. So, you run into a lot of things in there, but again, you only look at what you can control. And of course, these conversations are being had at with lenders and also being had around kitchen tables. How to get through, how to maximize the return of investment we can possibly get. Another thing that's being talked about. We talked a lot about Farm Bill yesterday and the proposed Farm Bill, and of course that has a long way to go. So does the battle over E15, as we saw too. That fell very short and in a precarious time for us. But one of the things being talked about, and we probably haven't mentioned, is crop insurance. The deadline is coming up March 15th. So obviously, the plans are still under the 2018 Farm Bill. If you want to get technical, a little bit of upgrading was done with the big, beautiful bill. But again, we're going to be looking at the fact that crop insurance needs to be taken care of. It's one of those things that is sometimes gets thought about being put on the chopping block, Mark, but it's not something that farmers can ill afford, especially when we're in a situation that we find ourselves in economically.
That's certainly true, and that's, I'm sure, something we will talk a lot about at Commodity Classic. With that, you mentioned the March 15th date. We are going to be at Commodity Classic next week at the tail end of the week, and that's going to be right in that time frame where we're talking a lot about that. That's what's going on as we get into the lead up, the run up to the growing season. It was also funny yesterday as we had the closing market summary with Ethan Robson of agmarket.net. You can find that on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. It was funny hearing Ethan, he was talking about how he had to really, talk his dad down. His dad was so excited with the weather that we've been having. He was itching to get out there in the field, and Ethan had to say, calm down, not quite yet. We're still pretty early. Of course, he was saying that tongue-in-cheek jokingly, but his dad was ready to go.
It's understandable, but you also got to remember we got 20s coming up here, possibly into the weekend where it may warm up again. But we have heard of some soybeans being planted in February. We talked about that the last 2 years here on Iowa Ag Matters, and we're seeing that the beans handle the dormancy period a little bit better than the corn does. Well, let's go ahead and take off and get ready to go on the show here with Jim McCormick of agmarket.net talking grains with Mark Magnuson.
Joined today by Jim McCormick of agmarket.net. Jim, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Hey, good morning. The real strength is coming from the bean. It continues to march higher as it's making new contract highs. The big story right now is the anticipation of these RVO standards that are supposed to be, essentially announced by the White House by the end of the week. And then you got like a 30-day count. On the other hand, fighting a little bit of first notice day blues that come up next week.
So, Jim, when we've seen strength in the soybean complex this week, do you point mostly to that RVO news as the driver behind that?
I think that's the big one. I think the secondary driver still continues to be the hype, the anticipation that China might buy an additional 8 million metric tons of beans. Of course, President Trump made an announcement on Twitter a little week and a half ago. And what we've seen since then, just huge fund buying by the managed money. They came in and were aggressive buyers, just like they were late last year when the first trade deal recommendations all came out. So we're seeing just a massive amount of money flowing into the bean complex, driven primarily on China and these RVO optimism.
And what do you think has gotten people a little bit more interested in getting involved, I guess, in terms of trades based on the China news? Is it the fact that we've actually heard some news from the Chinese side of this deal lately, where we've actually heard some news stories coming out of China talking about the deal?
I think that's part of it. Honestly, I think part of it's just volatility. I mean, the fact of the matter is the grain market's been relatively quiet. The corn market, for the most part, has been in a very sideways market. So when you're getting this kind of volatility and the movement we saw in the beans earlier, just relatively recently, just a few months ago, I think that is what's also just attracting some of the trade into this.
And then in South America, have there still been weather concerns in Argentina with dryness and then also wetness concerns? I know there's been some issues with soybeans in Brazil.
There are some issues in Brazil, quality issues with Brazil, but in general, they're a huge country. They'll blend off a lot of it. So it's slowing down the harvest a little bit, but overall, it looks like they're on pace for 180 million metric ton or bigger crop potential there. Argentina, they've had some dryness issues, but overall, I would argue their crop looks pretty good. So if you're looking at overall from the 10,000 foot view or 30,000 foot view, I should say, there's a plenty of supply of beans in the world. And, China does, essentially what's going to happen if China does come in, Mark, and buys a lot of U.S. beans, let's say they do buy the 8 million metric tons of beans, what's eventually going to happen is we're not going to sell an additional 8 million above and beyond what we already think. What's going to happen is we'll sell 8 million metric tons of beans to the Chinese, and some of the demand that we were going to go out to is going to be displaced down to Brazil, because the fact of the matter is Brazil selling the beans $1 cheaper. So it makes sense for other buyers to buy from the Brazil on a raw economic level.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
You're listening to Iowa Ag Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. It is time now for Dustin Huffman's conversation with Robert Cossar of Croplan, talking about the ways that your data can help to make your entire operation improve. Here's Dustin with more.
We're here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and today we're talking about how seed innovation is becoming more localized and how the data we're getting back is helping drive more predictable return on investments. And we're being joined right now by Robert Cossar. He is with Croplan. And Robert, first of all, thanks so much for taking the time to visit with us here today.
Thanks, Dustin. I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, so Robert, let's just start off. How is this localized seed innovation driving smarter decisions and more reliable returns for our growers?
Yeah, Croplan Seed offers a comprehensive line of genetics, right? The unique thing about Croplan is we are able to access genetics from across the industry, from genetic providers. So we don't have just one genetic pool we're pulling from. We're pulling from a multitude of genetic pools, but also from a trait perspective, Croplan has access to all the traits in the industry, right? So the latest trait technologies that fits the acre, that's what we're really driving to. And really our local retail sales agronomist is that person that has all the information that comes together within Croplan Seed. And as we go local, that's really knowing that grower's management and how the hybrids are affected by that management. Yield is nothing but genetics by environment, but there's a management piece. And that's really where Croplan excels, is that local retail sales agronomists having that management data locally that they can help that grower know the inputs, when to apply the inputs to get the maximum return on that acre. We talk about yield. We love higher yields, but how much did it cost us to get there, right? And so we're more focused on what it costs for inputs versus output of bushels than we are just driving top yields. Genetics are there for drive top yields, but how do we get the management right to get the best return on investment for that acre.
All right, and so then obviously you've got this data. You're going through a lot of work that Croplan is doing to get that localized data, to be able to take that now and give that to the farmers. And right now we're in a situation where every bushel counts, every dollar counts, whether that is what you pull out of the field or what you're putting into it. How do you take that data and apply it to, a certain farmer's setup?
Yeah, you're right, Dustin. Every dollar counts. For every penny this year seems like it counts. And I know growers are looking and putting their budget together. From a cropland seed perspective, we're been known for the Anthroplot system, and the Anthroplots are entering their 28th year of being in existence, right? So 28 years we've been doing replicated data in the Anthroplots, not only the data, the replicated piece, but also the demonstration agronomic piece that's part of the Anthroplot. And what that allows us to do is really help our retail sales agronomists know what that how that hybrid is going to respond to those fungicide applications, right? Respond to nitrogen applications. Is a hybrid all about grain feel at the end with kernel size and kernel depth? Is that driving yield? If so, then we know we've got to also drive nitrogen late season versus a hybrid that gets its yield from the number of rounds and the length of that year. We know we got to drive nitrogen earlier. So those are the pieces that we're looking at. You'll hear us call it response to scores, but it's really about how we manage those inputs, and that retail sales agronomist is getting their information from our Anthroplot system. Like I said, 28 years of that kind of data that we're pulling from to really help that retail sales agronomist work with those growers to dial in their information for them on each individual acre, instead of just making a broad paintbrush across the whole farm.
Stay up to date with the latest in the ag industry with Agribusiness Matters from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Each weekday, we bring you the latest advancements in farming, from new precision ag technology to cutting-edge sustainable farming practices. Agribusiness Matters is also your source for the most relevant ag news, policy discussions, and insights that are shaping the future of agriculture. Tune into Agribusiness Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
It's time to run down those basis prices here on Iowa Ag Matters for this Wednesday. I'm Dustin Huffman. Didn't see a whole lot of change in the bids. In fact, only 3 elevators making any kind of changes. Let's take a look at where the prices are today. ADM Burlington, 11 cents under on corn, $4.16. Soybeans, 14 cents under, $11.27. Cargill Eddyville, 15 cents under on corn, $4.12 for the cash bid. New Co-op Algona, 31 cents under on corn, $3.96. Soybeans, 67 cents under, their cash bid, $10.74. Ag State Sheldon, 18 cents under on corn, $4.09. Soybeans, 75 cents under, they're at $10.66. Ag State Elta, 37 cents under on corn, $3.90 for the cash bid. Soybeans, 65 cents under at $10.76. Cargill Cedar Rapids, 14 cents under on corn, $4.13. Soybeans, 45 cents under at $10.96. 5-Star Co-op Nashua, $4.05. That's the corn bid, 22 cents under the board there. Soybeans, 60 cents under, $10.81. At Lincoln Way Energy in Nevada, they're 19 cents under on corn, $4.08 for the cash bid. ADM Des Moines, their soybean bid, 50 cents under right now, the cash price, $10.91. New Co-op Red Oak, 28 cents under on corn, $3.99. Soybeans, 75 cents under, $10.66. Mid-Iowa Cooperative Green Mountain, 36 cents under on corn, $3.91. Soybeans, 80 cents under, cash bid, $10.61. New Co-op Sheraton, 32 cents under on corn, $3.95. Soybeans, 75 cents under, $10.66. Walk-On Feed Ranch, 38 cents under on corn, $3.89. Soybeans, 70 cents under, $10.71. New Co-op Glidden, 30 cents under on corn, $3.97. Soybeans, 67 cents under, cash bid, $10.74. Innovative Ag Farley, 40 cents under on corn, the cash price there, $3.87. Soybeans, 72 cents under at $10.69. And finally, at Cargill Muscatine, the river's closed for the season. Deliveries will resume there beginning the week of March 23rd. Cash corn and soybean bids are subject to change without notice. Always check with your local elevator when making sales to obtain the most recent price. And that's been a check of your basis bids here on Iowa Ag Matters. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this message.
You might think Iowa just grows corn, but the truth is corn grows Iowa. Farmers that invest in the Iowa Corn Checkoff support expanding and building demand for corn in all forms. By pooling our resources, we are able to make a larger impact in research, market development, and education, and increase the return of investment for our Iowa farmers. For more information, visit iowacorn.org.
You're listening to the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Riley Smith had the chance recently to speak with the team at Valent and talk about several things that are very important and coming up just around the corner when it comes to spring planning, including some of those pre-emergence products that can help you on your operation. Here's Riley with more.
Riley Smith, Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and I'm here right now with Will Griffin of Valent. And of course, we are in the new year, 2026, already in the second month of that, and that means planting season will be here before we know it, and a new crop season. So when it comes to the new crop season, many decisions that growers need to be considering. Will, if you could tell us a little bit about some of those decisions that need to be thought about right now, especially when it comes to building effective spring burn down and pre-emergence programs for corn.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you taking the time and allowing me to have this conversation. Obviously, as we look at 2026, it's much like other years. The producers are really trying to focus on how can they maximize their profitability on their acre. And the easiest way to do that is to make sure that in a lot of cases where we've put down that fall fertilizer, whether it was anhydrous or in some case other nutrients in preparation for our crop season, is that we get something out there early from a pre-emerge perspective that helps make sure that those crops that are in the field get that clean start, don't have to compete with weeds in the field for those nutrients that we've already got out there in place waiting on that corn to germinate and start growing.
And you mentioned getting ahead. We've seen in many years, especially when it comes to the crop protection side of things, you can't play from behind. So let's talk about that value in getting ahead of things and not playing catch up when it comes to protecting those yields in the cornfields.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we talk about a lot is, especially with our herbicide-focused portfolio, is making sure that we have a really strong pre-emerge product out there. Make sure that we can have the crop clean as it's starting to germinate. And so, and then coming back in with some overlapping residuals that we have within our portfolio. And depending on how you want to apply products that we have within our corn offerings, we have Maverick, which is a great product that has a wide range of application timing and windows, and then Perpetuo as well. And they both fit in really well with whatever cropping system you're using. But the key is to make sure that we start early, make sure we get something out, get that get that ground clean, and then make sure that we come back in and get a really good overlapping residual that helps us stay clean throughout the season, so that not only do we not have weeds competing with the crop during the season, but as we're combining and harvesting, we're combining a really clean field, a really clean crop that's going to the elevators. And then also, as you think about thinking forward, you're keeping those weeds from germinating, so you're keeping that seed from getting scattered across your field as well during harvest. So it really starts on the front end with making sure that you're working with your crop advisor, making sure that you have a really strong pre-emerge program out there that'll give you the residuals you need, understanding that we see a lot of different environmental issues come up throughout the year. Sometimes it's dry, sometimes it's wet, sometimes it's both of those in long stints. And making sure that you get something out early allows you to be able to ride that wave of environmental uncertainty as we get into the cropping system.
And we know, especially when it comes to last year, that environmental uncertainty is kind of the name of the game at this point. Let's go ahead and highlight Perpetuo herbicide itself a little bit more. Just when it comes to that part of the Valent portfolio, how does Perpetuo fit in there? And I know you touched already, it fits in really well with really any farmer's crop management plan, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great product. It has the residual peroxysulfone, and it also has the pre-emerge activity of our flumichloride product that we sell in a lot of, and is a product resource. So we've taken a product and made it better with Perpetuo. And I think at the end of the day, when we think about what fits and how it fits, it's all about making sure that we have those flexibilities in our offerings. And Perpetuo can go down pre-emerge in conjunction with other products, other residual products. You don't want to have something out there just as a standalone like pyroxysulfone. You want something out there with it like an atrazine or something to that effect. But then also it has the flexibility to come back in that later season, in that late season application. You can come back in with it as well. So, we really look at, depending on the cropping situation and the cropping environment and what you're looking at trying to do on the front end or the back end, both Perpetuo and Maverick have a lot of flexibility from not just the capability to control weeds that are there, but also the application windows you have a lot wider and a lot wider window and rate range as you look at trying to decide which of those products to use.
All right, Will, lots of great information today. For any producers who would like to get in touch with Valent and learn more about the product lineup, how can they do that?
Well, you can go to our website, valent.com, and reach out to your representative. It'll ping you as to what your location is. It'll ask you, and then it'll direct you to our local rep. But also, we have a lot of partners in the field from a retail standpoint. So making sure that you're reaching out to them, they can point you in the right direction as well.
All right, Will, thanks again for the time, and good luck as we head into yet another crop season here across the country.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time this afternoon.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
Spring planting starts with one smart decision. Corn Pro from Landis delivers a complete corn program with built-in savings. Nutritionals, herbicide, and fungicide, all working together in one plan backed by local expertise. Lock in competitive pricing, sign up any number of acres, and take advantage of 0% interest through 2026 to protect your cash flow. Less complexity, more performance. Get the most out of your corn crop with Corn Pro from Landis. Talk with your local Landis team today.
This is the Midday Market Update on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson, joined at midday by Caden Sweeney of agmarket.net. Caden, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Yeah, really pretty quiet Wednesday so far, which, sometimes isn't all bad, but corn had a pretty tight 2-3 cent range here so far today, trading basically unchanged on the day. Beans currently up about a penny or two. We are, 7, 8, 9 cents off the high, but still hanging on to a green trade there this morning.
And when you look at the soybean oil here recently, what do you point to as the biggest driver of that? Is that just optimism about biofuels and any kind of news we could be getting here soon?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm certainly not a biofuels expert, nor do I know, what's necessarily coming down the pipeline. But any time lately that we've gotten any indication from the government or, kind of whispers or rumors on the know that, something may be on the horizon, that market has been bought and bought aggressively. So it's all relating back, like you said, to renewable diesel, renewable fuels, biodiesel, whatever it may be. We certainly want, some more domestic demand, and that's probably going to, come in the form of some sort of added demand for bean oil as well. So, yeah, like I said, I don't know any news today, but that certainly is usually, the indicator of a rumor below the surface.
On the other side of the markets, we had a very strong day in the cattle complex yesterday. What's it look like today in the trade?
We're also pretty quiet there on the cattle side as well. Fats currently unchanged on the day. Feeders up, 20 cents to 40 cents basically. So as far as the cattle go, that's a very quiet day. But like you said, good day yesterday, just kind of taking a breather here today. The cattle fundamentals continue to be bullish up until the point that, we decide to reopen the Mexico border. I think that will be a huge headwind if that ever happens. And I'm not saying one way or another. I'm certainly no expert in that area. But, if this administration really wants to try to bring down the price of beef and the retail side, that's probably one way they're going to do it. And I think the market will react pretty negatively to that if and when it happens. Until then, I mean, our domestic supply is pretty tight and continuing to expect to see a strong market there.
Caden Sweeney of agmarket.net, my guest here today. Thanks so much for the time, Caden. For our listeners who want to get in touch for more marketing information, what's the best way to do so?
Yes, sir. Just go to our website, agmarket.net, and you can get any contact information there that you may need. Good time to be hammering out some 2026 marketing plans, and we'd love to help. So get a hold of us there.
Farmers, stay on top of your local market with Basis Matters from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Every day, we bring you the latest corn and soybean cash prices from inland grain elevators and river terminals across Iowa. Get the prices you need to make the best-selling decisions, no matter where you are in the state. Basis Matters connects you to the numbers that matter most to your farm. Tune in every weekday only on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network and make informed grain marketing decisions with Basis Matters.
March corn up 1/4 cent at 426.5. March soybeans up 1/4 cent at 11.34 1/4. March soybean meal down $1.80 at 3.04 even. March soybean oil up $1.18 at 58.47. On the Merc, April live cattle down 25 cents at 242.55. March feeder cattle down 25 cents at 370.73. April lean hogs up 25 cents at 92.55. April pork cutout unchanged at 103.40. Class 3 milk up 49 cents at 16.42. That was a check of the midday markets on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson.
Well, we're going to get back into the livestock side of things here on Iowa Ag Matters, talk about what's happening in those cattle and hog markets. And for that, being rejoined once again by Jim McCormick of agmarket.net as he sits down with Mark Magnuson. Mark?
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade today?
Right now, relatively quiet in the cattle market. After surging yesterday on the higher cash beef, on the higher cash trade last week, overall demand is still very, very robust. The bull trend is continuing to go. And, the fact of the matter is supplies still are desperately tight in the cattle market, and the market, is continuing to see the consumer demand. And remember, that's the goal of the market right now, is to essentially do two things. Either you got to drive the price high enough to bring supply back into the system, which is very hard to do in the cattle industry. The other thing you need to do when you got tight supplies, you drive that price up to essentially knock out some of the consumers and move them down to maybe a cheaper form of protein, potentially the pork or the hog industry. Now, the hogs have had a pretty good correction after the recent run-up, but I don't think they're going to fall out of bed, especially as long as you get this cattle market continuing to catch a bid.
Jim, have you been paying attention to some of those impressive cash trade numbers? I know there was some numbers on Friday that were talked about that were pretty impressive.
It's amazing. Like I said, it's a situation right now. It just shows you how tight the supply is. And like I said, the goal of the market right now is, the cash trade is that tight. If you're a packer, you're paying that much for the cash cattle, you're going to do your darndest to pass it on to the consumer. And now we'll see if the consumers will be willing to pay up for these prices. But definitely a very impressive run in the cattle market as we speak.
What's the best way for our listeners to get in touch for more marketing information?
Best way to reach anybody, the Ag Market team, is go to agmarket.net. You can sign up for a free trial of research. You can download our app and sign up for consulting. So agmarket.net is your place to go.
Jim McCormick, agmarket.net. Thanks so much for the time. Always appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for having me on.
At the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, we deliver ag-focused content designed to complement your local radio station. From market updates to the latest ag news, our trusted farm broadcasters bring you the information you need while your local station keeps you connected to the heart of your community. And just like your local station, our broadcast team is Iowa-based, so we have feet on the ground across the state. Together, we're stronger for Iowa's farmers. This message from your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
Spring planting starts with one smart decision. Corn Pro from Landis delivers a complete corn program with built-in savings. Nutritionals, herbicide, and fungicide, all working together in one plan backed by local expertise. Lock in competitive pricing, sign up any number of acres, and take advantage of 0% interest through 2026 to protect your cash flow. Less complexity, more performance. Get the most out of your corn crop with Corn Pro from Landis. Talk with your local Landis team today.
Well, environmental stewardship is something we talk about quite a bit here, whether that is in the grain side or the livestock side of things. And we're going to have Mark conclude his conversation now that he started yesterday with one of the regional winners out of Eastern Iowa. They got a chance to meet with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association meetings in Nashville.
Mark Magnuson for the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I am at CattleCon in Nashville 2026, and I'm joined by Jack Smith. He is an Iowa producer from Bankston, Iowa, which is near Epworth in Dubuque County. And Jack is a winner of an ESAP award, Environmental Service Award Program. He is the winner for region number 3. And you had mentioned, right from the very start about soil erosion. Was there something that caught your eye on your operation maybe back before you had implemented no-till that made you think, hey, we need to do something here?
Yeah. Well, we were just tilling. We were doing a field cultivator pass a little bit below seed depth to warm it up and dry it a little bit. And then we had one event where it rained about 2 inches in about a half hour, and we had some little rill erosion, and our sons and myself, we decided, all right, we're done. We got to implement practices to eliminate this. So that was our come to Jesus moment, I'd say. And, so I think when you commit to something, then you make it work. And we've obviously learned a lot. We've had a few mistakes, but overall it's been a real positive. When instead of tilling ahead of a planter, my son now is freed up to calve cows, and he loves the fact that he doesn't have to do tillage, so it's everybody's strapped for labor, and no-till's a way for us to alleviate some of those issues.
You hear that all the time from people that no-till, the fact that it saves you that time, and time can be money, definitely. Jack, when you think about this award overall, you were doing things on your farm to hopefully do things the right way, but this kind of confirms that you've been doing things the right way because other people are recognizing you. So what has it kind of meant for you to get this award here today?
Well, we're humbled by it. I mean, it's nice to be recognized, but we didn't go looking for recognition. I think, people say, well, what do you hope to achieve by being recognized? Well, I think the gratifying thing for us is if we, people drive by our farms and, they know we're no-tillers, and they see that our crops are as good or better than our neighbors, and we're, that can maybe incentivize someone else to adopt these same practices, And I think the thing that we have to really realize is that Iowa has, I think, maybe 20% of Iowa's, or the country's Class A soils, or the world's maybe, I don't, but that it's such a valuable resource that we got, it's not dirt, it's soil. We have to treat it like the value that it really does have. And so we have a low tolerance for soil erosion, and we're committed to doing everything we can to mitigate that. But along the way, we figured out that this is the most profitable way too.
And then, Jack, last point I wanted to make here was running around CattleCon, I keep running into Iowa producers. I mean, and we keep hearing it from different groups. Iowa producers are engaged. And it's great to see, making the trip from Iowa, coming to Nashville, getting involved in the meetings, going to the award ceremonies. Iowa producers, basically, they care.
Yeah. Well, my message to Iowa farmers would be, this industry needs more cows. It's obvious feeder cattle are high, and there's opportunity in the cow business. And you ask yourself, where could we run more cows in the United States? And I would say it's in corn country, where we have access to all this residue that, we don't need to be tilling it under in the fall. We just get cows on it to manage the residue, to set it up for next year's crop. And they'll pay you to, the cows will give you a return instead of burning up a bunch of diesel fuel and opening it up for erosion. So, that's my message, is that, Iowa could have a rebirth in cow numbers, I think, and that would be better as far as, and it'd be good for environmental sustainability, but also economic sustainability. We could make some money doing it. And I know it costs a lot now to get in if you don't own cattle, but, I would tell young people, well, maybe if you can get 10 head and they keep, 3-4 heifers a year, or more, when your numbers, your management could increase with your numbers. So you get, we're a lot better at this than we used to be. And that'd be my approach. You have the benefit of time. So let's just start, dive in and start. And hopefully you can get up to numbers that, make a nice little enterprise for you someday.
And I've seen a lot of young people walking around CattleCon as well. I think they're energized by the fact that there is that profitability aspect out there right now.
Yeah, it's fun owning cows right now. Cows are the factory. Everybody wants, feeders are high priced and everybody wants to feed some cattle, but the cows are the factory that start this great process. And we have a product that consumers want to buy at higher prices. So it's definitely a growth business.
Jack Smith, he is the ESAP Region 3 award winner. He's from Dubuque County. Jack, thanks so much for the time here today. Really enjoyed the conversation and have a great rest of the CattleCon.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another edition of Iowa Ag Matters. A reminder, you can find the show anytime under the podcast page of our website at iowaagnet.com. Join us again tomorrow for more Iowa Ag Matters here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Thanks for listening.